Well, hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. In Seattle here, it is 9 o'clock in the morning. So we're just starting our day, but some of you are having lunch if you are on Eastern time zone. And I'm so excited that we're here today to talk about leaky gut and how it might be affecting your child's ADHD or anxiety symptoms. So I'm just going to wait a couple minutes just for everyone to jump online, but I'm going to just share my screen. Give me 1 second. Because I've prepared a few little slides for you guys, and I'd love to know who's joining me live. I'm looking over at different screens because I've got Facebook. I want to make sure that I can actually see everyone's comments if they're making them. I can see that we've got 21 people watching, which is fantastic. And I can already see that. Hi, Andrea. I can see that you've tagged someone in the video, so that's fantastic. Hold on 1 second. I need to turn off my phone. I don't want to hear myself talking. So guys, welcome. We are going to talk about today leaky gut, and could it be causing a lot of your child's ADHD and anxiety symptoms? I can see that there's about 30 people on, so thank you everyone. And I can see that everyone's getting excited about it. So I sent out an email earlier this week talking about my son and his poop issues. Now, I am sure he's not going to be very happy later in life when he realizes that I was talking about him. But let's leave that for another day. So my oldest son used to have issues, and I've shared so many things about, the meltdowns, his struggles at school, the impact of his behavior on our family. And one thing I have not shared previously was his potty issues. We had lots and lots and lots of problems. And I keep hearing this over and over again from people in the Facebook group. And so, I thought it's about time to share with you guys that I had that too with my son. Hi, Andrea. And so today I'm going to share with you about what it was for my son. And I want you to know, guys, that you are not alone if you are having these troubles too. So in my son, his persistent poo problems and gut problems and many of his symptoms related to ADHD and anxiety were actually caused by leaky gut. So before we get started, I know that a lot of you already know me and know my story, but there are so many new members in the group. So before we go any further, I should formally introduce myself. Obviously, I am not American. I am Australian, but I do live in Seattle, Washington. Hi, Sandra. And my name's Dana. You can call me Dana, you can call me Dee, whatever you want to call me is fine. I'm a board certified holistic health practitioner and the founder of the Nutrition Method for Kids group program and our Road to Thrive. And I work with families day in and day out that have kids with ADHD, anxiety, and similar disorders to really fight symptoms with food and a natural approach so your kids can feel better, they can do better, and they can be better. I've actually got two boys of my own, and my oldest son was diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety at the age of 4. And parenting is the toughest job I have ever done and know I will ever, ever, ever do. We went on a vicious cycle of trial and error of all those supplements that I thought were going to work. We went to medication. It was a vicious cycle for us. And by the time my doctor had suggested the fourth medication to treat the symptoms of the other 3 medications, I just thought, hold on, wait a minute. Not okay. And really found myself in a situation that I knew I had to get out of. And through that, my son's doing awesome. He hasn't been on medication for years. He's doing amazing at school when it was in session. He's been doing amazing at homeschooling as well. And really ended up with a passion to help other families experiencing what I was, because it was extremely, extremely difficult for me. And it just doesn't need to be that difficult for other people. And, I know how sad and lonely and anxious you can feel when you're going through those challenges. But we're not here today to talk about me. I'm sure that everyone here is online, and I'm just keeping an eye on comments. So if you want to make any comments below, drop a live. If you hashtag live or hashtag replay in the comments below, so I know who is actually here live. So you're asking, what the heck is leaky gut? So I'm here today to explain to you. Okay. So firstly, I wanted to give you a really brief overview of a few things relating to the gut and how it's so connected to how our kids function, especially those with ADHD, autism, anxiety, and similar disorders. They all sort of fall within an umbrella, like sensory processing, all of that falls in within the same umbrella. And I want to talk about the gut-brain connection. Now, there's a very close connection between the gut and the brain. And one of the first signs of disconnect in the brain is a gut that is not functioning well. And that is because of the two-way communication between the two. So when something is not working properly with one, the other one is not functioning well either. Now, I just realized I didn't ask you guys if you could hear me. Can someone tell me in the comments below that you can hear me and see my screen, most importantly, because here I am going off talking about the gut-brain connection and I don't know if anyone can hear me. So can someone drop in the comments below, yes, I can hear you and see your screen, just so I can make sure that I'm not talking to anyone, not talking to silence. So I'm just going to wait for that comment, and I'm just checking out on the Facebook comments, and there's a slight delay. So hopefully I can see that Alison liked the video. I can see that Kristen liked the video, and yes, I can, Jessica, fabulous. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Lindsay. Yes, there's a lot here. So fantastic. Okay. So what I was saying is, so when something is not working with one, the other one is not functioning well either. So the brain has many areas that are involved in gut function, but one of the main areas is the frontal lobe. And it talks to the gut via nerve branches and two-way chemical messengers. Now, as you might be aware or not aware, people with ADHD generally have a weak frontal lobe, which also compromises these messengers. So ensuring that the gut is functioning well gives your child's frontal lobe the best opportunity to function well as well. So the frontal lobe is involved in things like attention, focus, executive function, planning, organizing, problem solving, which are common symptoms that most of our kids suffer with. But for me, this is the real thing. Jennifer, great, glad you made it. But for me, this is the real thing, the most important thing. The gut is also responsible for making 70 to 90% of our serotonin and 50% of our dopamine, which are our happy, feel-good neurotransmitters, hormones in our body that help regulate our emotions, maintain our mood balance, and our cognitive function. Again, these are areas that most kids with ADHD and anxiety have problems with, and was huge for my son. The tantrums were massive, but as soon as we could work on his gut and reduce inflammation in his body, they went away. Now, common prescription medication like SSRIs from doctors that are used in the area specifically for anxiety, for example, basically aim to allow the body to use the serotonin that it has more effectively. However, we believe that we should just find out why the body is not producing the right amount of serotonin, fix that, then the body can produce what it needs to function well. It makes sense, doesn't it? Totally. So we're going to dive into the anatomy of the gut. So this just shows us, everything that I've just said shows us how important gut function is to how our kids function and the severity of their symptoms. So now I turn my attention to leaky gut. So the first thing I want to do is talk a little bit about the mucosal barrier. Okay, so when we talk about the mucosal barrier here, I'm talking about the small intestine and the lining of the small intestine. It connects the stomach and the large intestine, and it's pretty long. It runs about 22 feet long. I mean, that's huge. When it is functioning well, it actually absorbs about 90% of our nutrients from our food that we eat, and it transports water, nutrients, and vitamins into our cells. And when it isn't functioning well, it can actually increase toxicity in the body. So this image that you see on the screen is actually the basic anatomy of the mucosal barrier. So it has a single layer of cells called enterocytes that line the barrier. These are held together by really tight junctions, which main function is to actually keep particles from going through. You can also see these finger little things, on the top called microvilli that absorb the nutrients that keep us healthy. So basically, the mucosal barrier job is to keep the bad guys out. So things like parasites, bacteria, viruses, and let the good guys in, those nutrients, that food, that water. It takes all those macronutrients, so carbs and fat and protein that we eat, and it digests them and converts them into micronutrients so they can be absorbed by these villi, and it delivers them into the bloodstream and into our cells. So nothing larger than a micronutrient size should be able to get through. Okay, so hopefully you've got that. Is that too complicated? Please tell me if you want me to repeat anything. And I'm just looking at my Facebook comments to make sure I grab them all. Now, there's also an additional defense system here beyond that physical barrier. We also see we have a chemical barrier created in the small intestine called secretory IgA, or SIGA for short. So we call it SIGA. And you can see that on the top of the diagram. So SIGA, it's kind of a chemical defense system, and it's there to protect against things that should not come into the system. So even though we have that physical barrier, we still need this additional chemical defense system in order to make sure that nothing gets into the bloodstream. Okie dokie, moving on. So we have our physical and our chemical defense systems to protect our body. Now, can you imagine what would happen if these defense systems are not functioning properly? It can compromise nutrient absorption and also allow these nasty toxins and parasites and bacteria to leak into our bloodstream. In other words, you can have something called leaky gut. Okay, so here we are. We're at the crux of it. So at the top of this diagram, you can see these nasties: stress, toxins, parasites, bad bacteria, system malfunctions. And if they're there on a constant basis, it can trigger inflammation, and it can also damage this mucosal barrier. What happens then, we get this breakdown to the tight junctions between the enterocytes that allow all of these nasties to leak through into our bloodstream. And the more onslaught it receives, the larger the holes, and the larger the molecules that can leak into your system. Now, normally when you don't have holes in the lining of the gut, basically when we eat food, our gut breaks down that food, as I said, into those micronutrient-sized particles. And those particles go through the lining of the gut into our cells to give us the nutrients we need so we can function optimally. But when leaky gut is present, when we eat food, even the healthiest food, before the gut has had a chance to break it down, it can go through these holes in the gut into our bloodstream. Now, the way the body is designed is that when something foreign, as I've been telling you, goes into our bloodstream, it recognizes them as a foreign object and turns on an immune response. Now, if you think about that, if that large molecule is in fact a large food macronutrient or protein, then your immune system might start sending signals to create an immune response and start creating antibodies and start attacking it. Now, the body has an awesome memory. So anytime you eat that food again, your immune system sees it as dangerous. It attacks it, which causes more inflammation and continues to further break down the lining of the gut. Now, all of this results in food intolerances, and these food intolerances continue to wreak havoc on the gut until they're removed. And it's like this vicious cycle. So something started leaky gut, whether that was those parasites, those toxins, medication, or something started that leaky gut. Then the leaky gut caused the food intolerances, and the food intolerances continue to cause leaky gut. So it's this vicious cycle that goes round and round and round. So in order to heal the gut, you have to remove these foods, or they will continue to further break down the lining of the gut, and you're not going to be successful. To add fuel to the fire, all of these invaders that are causing this inflammation then cause those microvilli, those little things at the top, to become blunted and flattened out. So you can actually get nutrient deficiency or vitamin deficiency because so much of the minerals and vital nutrients can't be absorbed, and even the healthiest foods aren't being absorbed by the body. It's pretty amazing when you actually hear about it. So from this chart, you can see that leaky gut can affect the whole body. It can cause anxiety. Remember, I said the gut makes 70 to 90% of our serotonin and 50% of our dopamine, our happy, feel-good neurotransmitter hormones in our body. Depression, skin issues, constipation or diarrhea, ADHD symptoms such as hyperactivity, emotional dysregulation, frequent colds, headaches. And if it goes on too long, you can also get autoimmune diseases. And you can also see that it's not always obvious that it's connected to leaky gut. If you've got brain fog, can't focus, it's probably connected to leaky gut. It may be connected to leaky gut. So we have all of this information now, but what are we going to do about it? Okay, there are a couple of ways to address leaky gut, and one of those is diet. But before I go there, a lot of you might have heard me say this before, but I'm going to say it again and again and again. And because I really want you to remember this. If you don't have a solid foundation when you're building a house, your house will fall down. The body is exactly the same. Diet has to be the foundation of any plan, even a traditional medical plan or a holistic plan. Okay? You can try to reduce inflammation in the body and the gut and the brain through removing foods that inflame it. Okay? Things like gluten, dairy, soy, avoiding refined sugars, processed meats, junk food, sauces, artificial flavors, colors, preservatives, and sugary beverages. But it is more important to focus on all the great things you should be eating. You want to bring in that whole, nutritious, micronutrient-rich fruits and veggies, grass-fed animal proteins such as meat, poultry, seafood, eggs, sprouted seeds and nuts, gluten-free grains such as gluten-free oats, buckwheat, rice, sorghum. You want to add in fermented vegetables such as kimchi, sauerkraut, miso. Drink plenty of spring water, such as, spring water that you can, try to avoid ones that are in plastic bottles, but spring water, it also helps detox the body to get toxins out that are already there. You can bring in gut healing bone broth, kombucha. Smoothies are an awesome way to get nutrients into your body and into your diet. You want to eat healthy fats such as avocado, coconut, olive oils, and choose organic non-GMO food where possible. And finally, bring in some gut healing supplements such as probiotics and leaky gut repair supplements. Okay, there is also another way that you can focus on leaky gut. I am just making sure that there's no questions. Okay, great. The other way is through functional lab testing. Okay, so functional lab testing actually delves deep into your child's body, into the gut, to look at, firstly, what's there that's creating leaky gut, but also what we need to target to get rid of those toxins, to get rid of those nasties in that gut, and also what we need to repair it. The first test would be something called a GI map. It's a stool test, and it basically looks at the state of the gut. It looks for what has caused the leaky gut in the first place, like parasites, bacteria, worms, yeast overgrowth, but it also has some awesome intestinal health markers that look at inflammation, immune system responses, reactivity to gluten, digestive enzymes, and are you digesting your fat well? And of course, it looks for leaky gut, right? But remember, not all gut tests are created equal. So a standard gut test that you might get from your pediatrician will not really give you the information you need to target what's created that leaky gut and if you've actually got leaky gut. The next lab we use is called Vibrant Wellness Zoomer Test and Food Sensitivity Test. So as I said before, you need to remove the food intolerances out of the diet and work on healing the gut. And we can start to see some of those symptoms reducing. This test looks for inflammatory reactions in the body to certain foods. Now, the important thing to remember is food sensitivities are not true allergies, but they do cause that inflammation in the body, and they do cause leaky gut. So you can actually heal from sensitivities. Once you can heal the gut, you can start to add those foods back in. Now, the test that we use is very different to one you can get online or at the pharmacy or at the doctor. I use a lab called Vibrant Wellness, and it's a food Zoomer test. And I'll spell that for you, Zoomer. The reason I have to spell it is because I say Zoomer and you say Zoomer. So I need to spell it so you know what I'm talking about. Now, most normal food sensitivity panels test the food at the top protein level. The issue comes as a lot of foods have similar protein structures. So food sensitivity panels tend to have a lot of false positives and false negatives. So when you test at that top protein level, it doesn't give you the best results. Okay, so this test tests each food down to the peptide level of the food, not just at the top protein level, which normal food sensitivity panels do. And so this peptide level testing, it zooms in on each individual peptide fragment of the proteins in order to test for the full array of possible reactivity to each of these food for the most accurate 100% results. Now, I will say I was doing a test for analysis for a client a couple of weeks ago, and we did a food sensitivity panel, and we did these food zoomers, and we did an egg zoomer. And in the egg zoomer, it tests probably about 15 different peptides in the egg yolk and the egg white. And he came up so reactive to so many of those peptides. But we did a food sensitivity panel that tested the top protein level as well, and egg came up negative. So if we'd just done a standard food sensitivity panel, we wouldn't have known that that kid was so highly reactive to eggs, and we wouldn't have been successful in our protocol. That's really how it works. Now, this test also tests for leaky gut. So it's got some great leaky gut markers in it as well. So not only the food, but it also tests for leaky gut as well. Now, I do suggest other tests to my clients, but these are the ones that specifically relate to leaky gut and are very important to get an idea of what is underlying in those hidden stresses in the body that is contributing to that leaky gut and to your child's symptoms. Once we get back results, we develop a bio-individual plan with lifestyle changes, dietary modification, and targeted supplementation plan based on the lab tests. You probably hear me say a lot in the group when I'm responding to posts, when it comes to supplementation, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Supplementation should be tailored to each individual in order to address specific healing opportunities, provide support, but also make up for poor food quality. While some children are helped by nutritional supplements targeting certain minerals and vitamins, for others, it might show absolutely no effect. For me, for example, when I was going through this with my son, I read on some Facebook group that magnesium was going to be the be all and end all supplement for me. I was so excited and couldn't wait for Amazon to deliver my magnesium. But you know what happened? It caused the opposite effect for my son. And he had mammoth tantrums, meltdowns, and started bouncing off the wall. So for him, magnesium definitely wasn't that magic supplement. I always strongly recommend before considering supplementation that you address diet. As I said, it's the foundation of everything, and specific functional lab testing to identify those underlying malfunctions and stresses. So we've covered everything you need to go out and get started with focusing on leaky gut. Now it's up to you to make it happen. For those of you who are ready now and want to get extra support and really dive deep for your child, the best way we can help you right now is by personally supporting each and every one of you if you need it. So what I've done is I've set aside some time over the next 14 days for me and my expert team to talk with you personally about how we can support you to apply what we talked about today so that you can get back that calm in your house probably within 12 weeks. And we do that with a call called Your Road to Thrive Breakthrough Call, and it is 100% free. So I'm going to pop that link in the Facebook chat. Give me 1 second. Okie dokie. I'm going to pop that in the Facebook chat right now. So if anyone wants to book a call, go and use that link. Hopefully that works. Yes, it does. And to schedule your call, because you know what? There's a very big difference between trying to figure this out on your own and working with an expert who has a track record of success. So we are coming back to present time, people. I have probably a few minutes to answer any questions you may have. So I'm going to go over to the chat and see. I don't think we've got any questions. Let me have a look. Okay, I can see a couple. So I've got Kerry. When you start to remove the inflammatory foods, can anxiety and other symptoms get worse before getting better? If so, why? Kerry, very good question. Yes, it can. So gluten, for example, can cause a detox symptoms when you take it out of the diet. Now, when we do a wheat zoomer, for example, we look for all of these different antibodies that are in the body that tell us certain things about how that body's reacting to wheat. Now, if your child has something called glutamorphin or protonorphin antibodies in their body, they can very much suffer from gluten withdrawal. They will probably get exacerbated anxiety, hyperactivity. They may feel like they've got a flu, or they may feel like their stomach hurts. Usually you just need to stick with it. It can take a couple of weeks. There are things we can do to really help that body. Things like activated charcoal can help. We can use something called a wheat rescue that can help to, mop up some of those things. And you just need to lay low and bear with it. So yes, it can totally cause that, and it will take a different amount of time for different people to get through that. Some might not have it all. My son didn't have any of it, but we have some clients. I've got one client in the group at the moment. She was really, really suffering bad for over a week. Her gut was all swollen and everything, and then all of a sudden she came out of it and she feels amazing. She used to suffer from really bad inflammation in the hips and the muscles in her hips, and she is not suffering from that anymore after fully getting rid of gluten, dairy, and soy out of the diet and being in the program for the time that she's been in there. So hopefully that answers your question. Gabriella, have you ever experienced kids with trichotillomania and seen an improvement with diet only? I'm sorry, I'm not sure about what that actually is, Gabriella. If you can give me a little bit of a background of what that specifically is, and then I will talk about that. Roxanne saying, great point about magnesium, trying with my anxious kid and have had horrible meltdowns. I didn't hear that could happen, so had no idea. Yes. Yep, Carrie. Roxanne, totally. It happened to my son. Melanie, wasn't able to get on till now. Will there be a replay link? Yes, this is saved in the Facebook group, so you can totally watch it. Jennifer, do you help adults as well? Now, I normally help the parents of the kids that I'm helping. So what normally happens is we bring the kids into the program, we do functional lab testing, and then I end up working with the parents as well. If a random, 50-year-old single man that had no kids came to me with ADHD and said, could I work with you? Could you help me? I'd say, yeah, I could totally help you, but I don't think you want to work with me because everything I'm going to give you is related to kids and families. So a lot of the recipes that I give, a lot of the, things I teach in my program is very much related to families. So if you've got a family that has got kids that, also have these issues, I can help the whole family. It's a hair pulling habit. So Gabriella, that is most likely part of all of the umbrella of what we're talking about. Okay. So I've had kids that have pulled their hair for sure. And it's a part of inflammation in their body. It's a part of, the brain inflammation. And when we start to reduce that inflammation through food, And then, you know, if we need to dive deeper into functional lab testing and we see what's going on there and reduce inflammation that way, it can happen. These symptoms can fall away. You know, one of the big things that my clients talk about when they, you know, just do the food side of things is the change in the frequency of the tantrums. It just, you know, goes, you know, they stop. And, you know, they might be, you know, really, really short if they do happen. The intensity reduces. So hair pulling is just a way for them to express that inflammation that's going on in their body. So totally. Melanie, thank you. Jennifer, thanks. I had food sensitivity testing previously and reacted to everything. That's why I was answering. Thanks. Gabriella, my son was hit with this condition that was found to be gluten sensitive and gave him supplements which helped 100%, and he hit puberty and now it's back. Okay, so Gabriella, there's obviously something else now in his body that's causing this. A lot of the time it could be hormones. Maybe we need to do a hormone test. But also you do these tests, sometimes you need to do them again later in life. For example, you know, we started this journey years ago with my son. I hadn't tested him for about 2 years. And I actually got a voucher from one of the labs that I use because they wanted me to test out some of their new tests. And so I thought, okay, well, I might as well do it on my son. And so I hadn't tested him for about 2 years. But, you know, what I tend to say is sometimes, you know, they might all of a sudden start to see their symptoms come back, you know, a couple of years later. So we do need a retest. We need to see what's going on in their body. Bodies change, you know. I like to conduct tests on myself all the time, but that's because I've got access to them and I can read them myself. But yeah, it's going to change as they grow. And so you need to relook at it. You need to look at what's going on in his body right now. Food sensitivities, for example, you could be sensitive to a food, you know, a year ago, and a year later, you could be sensitive to a whole new range of foods. If you haven't healed that leaky gut, if you haven't closed the holes in that leaky gut, new foods are going to become sensitive. Okay, you're going to get new holes developing. And all of a sudden, you could end up with so many food sensitivities if you haven't focused on healing the gut at the same time as taking out those foods. I hope that makes sense. Gabrielle saying we went gluten-free diet. Yeah, gluten-free for sure. Gluten, dairy, soy, top 3 inflammatory foods ever. Roxanne, are GI map tests covered by insurance typically? No, I'm sorry, they're not. And that's the problem. And I probably shouldn't be talking about this, but that's the problem with the insurance industry, you know, in America. It's very driven by the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies. If something doesn't feed their bottom line, if you've got healthy people, they don't need drugs. They don't need to go to the doctors. They don't need to claim on insurance. The world changes. You know, I find in Australia, a lot of these tests are covered by insurance because it's a public health system. And so we do have private health insurance as well. Obviously I haven't been in Australia for a long time now, but back then we have private health insurance, but the whole health industry isn't driven by the insurance companies because of public health. And it's really sad. I could help so many more people. It makes me so upset and I get so frustrated and passionate about it. I wish I could do something about it, but a lot of these tests aren't covered by insurance, unfortunately. Gabriella, yes, I ordered a new test to check levels. What test do you recommend? I use for hormones the Dutch test. They're the best in the industry, gold standard. Okay, I think we've got all the questions, guys. Hopefully. Thank you for coming. You know, we're back to present time now. I'm just going to keep an eye on. If there's any more questions that pop up later, I will jump into Facebook and pop them. Thank you for coming today. If you booked a call with us, then we can't wait to talk with you. I'm just going to pop that link in the chat again in case you missed it. How do I comment? There you go. If you booked a call with us, great. We can't wait to talk to you. The call is really about us being of service to you. And if we both agree that you're the right fit for what we've got to offer, then we can totally discuss what that looks like. Either way, you'll get so much out of our time together, and we're really looking forward to talking with you. Thanks again, everyone. I'm going to keep an eye on the comments for people who are watching the replay. Drop a hashtag replay just so I know that you're watching, and I'll talk talk to you guys soon. I hope today that you found this enjoyable and contain a lot of information. So have a great day, everyone. Talk to you soon.